here we are. Back again.
Back again.
Yeah.
Like I never left.
It's like we never left.
We got to get one of those challenge coins. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah.
I want one like the size of this cup lid with just like a lemon on one side and then the other side is just a big old vinyl.
Oh,
That'd
yeah.
be super cool.
I like that.
And then I was thinking we could make, I mean, this is all like getting way ahead of ourselves, but I was thinking we could make merch. We could make like merch like featuring the lemon for the people that like the pop stuff. We could make merch featuring the vinyl for people who like the deep cuts, and for people like myself and you who kind of like a little bit of both. We have like the, the half lemon, half record logo kind of thing going on.
Something for everyone.
Yeah.
All right. I like it.
And obviously the coin, if we get the coin made, the lemon would be heads.
Yeah.
Lemon heads. It just has to. Just has to.
Nice.
So before we get started with the music, I just want to say, I'm just going to feature this shirt. I think everybody can see it. So this is like a Red Bull shirt, but the language is Thai. And I'm wearing this today in remembrance of my uncle who passed away a year ago on March 3rd.
Okay.
He got married later in life to my aunt. She's from Thailand, and that's where the shirt comes from. So this is his shirt, and
cool.
I just wanted to wear that to remember him. Just having him pass a year ago, and it was a rough story. He got early onset Alzheimer's. I think he was like barely 60. I think he was just 59, and it was from the time he got the diagnosis, it was quick. It was like 2 or 3 years, and then it wasn't like, a lot of old people, they can like kind of stay sharp, and it's just like a steady decline. His was like just a drop off. And he was out in Hawaii living his best life, and we had to move him and her back home here so we could kind of take care of him, and we ended up having to move him to like facilities. Ended up being best just to treat him at home, and then he did finally pass. And the reason I have the reason why I wanted to really remember him is because he's the one that got me really interested in music.
Okay.
He was actually part of the reason why I transitioned from just being like I've always been writing poetry like since a young age. Like I think I started when I was like 11 or 12. I got really interested in it, and then around maybe like a year or two later, he showed me Bob Dylan. And that was kind of the transition, is like, oh, okay. Like, I always found that much more appealing than just poetry because I just think it's more, there's another level to it. And I still love poetry, but songwriting was like my door into music. It's like, oh, well, I already do half of this. Now I just can learn how to do this other half, which is play chords and like, kind of put that together. So that was he was the reason that I started doing this. So.
Oh, cool. Well,
yeah, that's my little opening story for today.
That's awesome.
Miss him a lot, but it's definitely whatever is after this life. He's in a better place than he was where he was.
Yeah,
he was so funny too. Like towards the he really had no. It was weird. He came home to visit, and I think this was around the time he was diagnosed. But he was still a very active guy. That was the weirdest part, is that the mind goes, but his body was, he was strong as fuck. Dang it, I gotta go cut that. He was really strong. And he and I went for a jog around Savannah, and I was like, yeah, just let me know whenever you're ready, and we'll head back. And he was like, okay, I'm about at my halfway point. We started headed back, and I took him back to my grandma's house where he was staying, and he just started walking away. And I was like, where are you going? He was like, oh, this is my mom's house. I was like, yeah, this is. And so there were signs, and then it went from that to 2 years later or wwhatever, just done. And he would be in his hospital bed and stuff, and my mom, I would go over there and I would play songs that I had written, because it was more for my aunt and my grandma, because they were over there all the time taking care of him, and it was like kind of a way to make them feel better, because he could hear, but he couldn't process.
Right.
And it was funny because, like, my mom or my aunt or my grandma, they would like kind of whisper to him and like say nice things like, you looking really good today. And he would just kind of like look up and be, fuck you. It's just the mind goes. And
Yeah.
I'll beat that too.
Yeah, that's
So,
okay.
I'm so bad when it comes to the good boy timer.
I know.
I'm really bad.
dude, we haven't even gotten warm.
Really bad.
I mean,
What can I say?
that's okay.
That one was necessary though.
That was
necessary
a
to the
quote,
story.
and so that doesn't need to be bleeped out. It was a direct quote.
YouTube, have pity
Yes, we were.
on a
It was a direct quote.
yeah.
YouTube, we're talking to you. So, yeah, my grandmother actually passed from Alzheimer's. It's been actually next month it'll be 7 years, but hers was more of a gradual process, and she actually she passed just shy of her 94th birthday.
Oh, wow.
So she really got the best out of it.
Yeah.
And she had there's like two types. There's like the angry Alzheimer's
Yeah.
and the happy Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully she had the happy Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she fought it for a long time, but 94 years, she got her money's worth out of this life. So,
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, that was my Alzheimer's story. I didn't mean to take away from yours.
I feel like it's no. I think everybody has something like that, regardless of whether it's cancer or Alzheimer's or somebody in your family is like just statistically speaking. I think it's more likely than not something horrible is going to happen to somebody.
Well, yeah, I mean everyone. I talked to Trish. She's very lucky. Trish has all of her grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've got no grandparents left. I mean, it's
Right.
and we're the same age, but just be lucky you've got. And her grandparents are all like still there, like driving and very capable. So
It's so weird how it affects different people differently. Some people go their entire life with no issue, and then just something right at the end, or just old age in general gets them, and then some people are healthy, don't smoke, don't drink, drop dead at 30. It's just, life's weird.
It is, yeah. I've actually had some friends that were, my age I went to high school with, and, a handful of them have died of, quote, natural causes.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're my age, and then they were younger than me. And it's just really like, wait a minute, we're still young, even though, I'm 45, and the older I get, the younger I think the 40s are, and the
Right.
and I think about my parents are both in their 70s, and to me 70 is a lot younger than 70 was when I was like 20, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but yeah, my grandfather was in great health. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink. 67 years old, he had an aneurysm, and that was it.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
And there's no formula for that. Like, how do you prevent that?
no. And I've got family members that drink as much as they smoke, and and they'll live forever.
Yeah, it's so
So-
strange. Yeah,
Knocking on a little wood there.
that's your secret.
There we go.
I like it. So what's your shirt? What's the good ad?
Good bad flicks. This is actually a YouTube channel that is really awesome if you're like me and you like B and C grade, mostly horror movies or
Okay.
action movies. It's a guy named Cecil, and I mispronounced your last name, I'm sorry, Cecil Trachtenberg, and he just does an amazing job reviewing these good bad movies.
Okay.
And he is hilarious, and I'm just completely addicted to his channel. So if you ever come across our channel, Cecil, love you, brother. Keep doing the good work.
That's cool.
So,
That's
yeah.
cool. So he reviews these B and C movies.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Cool.
And
I like
but
that.
he has such a great sense of humor,
Mm-hmm.
and he has when he's not reviewing movies, he will do something called exploring, and he actually goes into the in depth of how some of these movies came about and how they're made and all that.
Oh,
But he
okay,
always
cool.
tries to find like the good in these bad movies.
I like it.
So
I like
it's
it.
definitely check it out. He's been around for a while, so but I love his channel very much. So
We got kind of a kindred thing going on with him. He's doing it with movies. We're kind of doing it with music, and
yeah. And he's a big metalhead. Like he'll slip
very
in
cool.
like these obscure metal references. Like he's referenced Overkill, and he's referenced
yeah.
a few death metal bands, and I'll catch him. It's like
Yeah.
I'm like that DiCaprio meme where you're like,
Yeah.
like that's me watching his channel. I'm like, oh wow.
yeah.
So, but yeah, shout out to Cecil. Great work on your channel. So, pick up on one thing that we had started discussing in our intro last week.
Okay.
And you were there when it happened last Saturday.
I was there.
Yeah. My niece was born. Yes. My wife's brother and his wife are now happy parents. They're home from the hospital. Mom and baby are doing great, and so is new dad.
Very cool.
So yeah.
That was good to hear.
That was. I know we had a cliffhanger because she was in labor.
Mm-hmm. And she was in labor a long time.
She was in labor all day.
Yeah, that's rough.
But you just happened to be hanging out with us when we got the news. So
very cool.
Me and Trish are aunt and uncle for the third time. So
very cool.
But yeah,
got to work on that jean jacket yet?
Not yet. I gotta measure the baby.
Well, you don't want it to be too big.
Yeah, I know. So
well, before we get to this, just to give kind of a prologue to what we're doing today, your suggestions were all sort of in this cohesive fashion. Very, I would say they're punk songs and maybe later punk songs, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of like just the timeline of punk.
Yeah.
So, and this is something that I'm not very familiar with. I have some basis of knowledge in terms of punk music, but a lot of what I know seems to be almost like counterfeit, if that makes sense, in terms of like people who are much more invested in punk music and like early punk music, like, because my basis of knowledge is like, I would say like the SLC punk movie basis of knowledge. So it's Sex Pistols, Ramones. But then, I talk to people who are actually into punk and they're like, oh, the Ramones, they're not punk. They're like a corporate response to punk. I don't have any, so I have no footing to stand on. The only thing that I'm fairly confident is that a lot of people consider the first punk album Patti Smith's Horses. And I was wondering if you, just in terms of this first little section, if you could give me sort of a history, and the audience a history on what punk is, how it started, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, and I don't have I'm not 100% credible on everything, but the Patti Smith thing, that's pretty close. A lot of people say that Blue Cheer and the MC5 were kind of the first punk-ish bands. I mean, that was the term punk actually came around more as like a slag to it was either the Ramones, which I think it was the Ramones, where they called them punks. And that was just where it started. I would say the Ramones weren't nearly as corporate as some other punk bands. One in particular is the Sex Pistols, because they were basically built to be a punk band. They were put together. Yeah, they were pieced together by their manager Malcolm McLaren, and he built that band.
So the sound was out there, and then this guy comes in. Okay, I'm going to try to sell this.
It was starting. The sound was starting. It was in the mid 70s.
So punk is like the coinage of the term is almost like in retrospect, this music started happening, and then in reference to it, even though it went back some time, that's what they started calling it.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you listen to the Ramones, and they were very influenced by like 50s music, surf guitar, which, not to get too off topic, but that's what influenced thrash metal also, was surf guitar. But back to the punk, and that was kind of what they were influenced by. The Clash was more of a poppier punk. I still consider the Clash punk, because I think most of it is just like more of an attitude. I mean, to me, Motorhead's first album is a punk album.
Okay.
I mean, it is straight up punk songs, and I love it. I love Motorhead anyway, but like that first record by Motorhead is a punk record.
Okay.
And that was kind of where Lemmy started out, as just being punk sounding, and then it evolved into what everybody knows Motorhead is now.
Fast and loud.
Yeah. But as far as like there's no like pinpoint era when punk officially started. The first punk album that people say is the Ramones' first record. It came out a year before, punk broke in the UK.
Okay.
New York punk was kind of like where it started, or on a commercial level.
Okay.
But and then it kind of spread to the West Coast of the U.S., which is, and then factions kind of broke off early on in what we call hardcore.
Okay.
Which is just like fighting punk.
Right. Okay.
So like those are two different things. Like hardcore and punk, even though they have kind of like they were birthed from the same tree, there's a huge difference. I mean, you will walk out of a punk show, a hardcore show. Good luck.
Yeah.
Those are the hardcore were the ones, and this isn't all hardcore. This is a small group, but they were where you had the skinheads and all that.
Okay.
They were into hardcore. Not, hardcore isn't a skinhead music, but skinheads were into hardcore.
Okay.
That
Sure.
makes it sound better. Yeah. I didn't want to put all hardcore people in the same bucket because they're not. But that was where that culture, that was the music that they were into, and then punks just kind of had their own almost like their own costume. And I think you mentioned SLC punk. I think that was actually mentioned, you're wearing the punk costume with the
right, yeah.
But like the New York punk style was like the leather jackets and the blue jeans and just a t-shirt. But that was just pretty much all the Ramones had. Mm-hmm. And then like the Sex Pistols, they were more kind of out there, and it was more Johnny Rotten. He would like have the safety pins and all that stuff, holding his clothes together. Mm-hmm. I mean, the other guys in the band dressed like just normal people. I mean, you look at pictures of Steve Jones, the guitar player for the Sex Pistols, and he dressed like any blue collar dude.
Right.
So it wasn't. They weren't really. The rest of them weren't really following a uniform. It was Johnny Rotten who was just kind of just to be Johnny Rotten. I mean, the dude is eccentric. He's out there. I love him to death. Mm-hmm. And I actually read his autobiography about 20 years ago, and you'd be surprised. He's actually an intelligent guy. Mm-hmm. He's just Johnny Rotten. He's awesome. But yeah, it kind of like started with I would say the base model of what we call punk would be the Ramones, Sex Pistols, the Clash. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of other ones, and I apologize. Those would be like the big three. Mm-hmm. And then you got into more your hardcore, like DRI, Suicidal Tendencies, and they started out as a hardcore band. The Exploited, Dead Boys. I'm just going all across the boards now, but and then metal bands were taking bits and pieces of punk. Oh, the Misfits! I can't believe I forgot to mention the Misfits.
Mm-hmm. My favorite. That'd be punk or hardcore.
Misfits are punk, and they were what people call horror punk.
Okay, yeah. Because they have that sort of thematic element.
Mm-hmm. And they were birthed. Let's see, the Misfits. I want to say about 78, maybe 79, and I could be wrong on that, but they weren't they weren't in the beginning, but they were kind of showing up a little bit after it got started. Mm-hmm. But
and they would have been in that East Coast area. They're from Jersey.
Yeah, they're from Jersey. So yeah, they were East Coast punk.
Yeah,
and I was trying to think who was West Coast punk.
Dead Kennedys.
Oh yeah, Dead Kennedys, and I'm sorry I didn't mention them. They're a great example of West Coast punk.
And then Black Flag, maybe.
Black Flag was DC.
Oh, okay.
Which that was its own era or its own region was the DC area punk scene.
Mm-hmm. And that's like Fugazi and yeah. So sorry for my confusion. I think I don't listen to a lot of Black Flag, but I've listened to a lot of Henry Rollins speaking, and he'll talk about the Black Flag era sometimes, and I think they were recording in Southern California. Maybe that's why I got confused.
Probably. They probably and I don't know 100% of their history. I do like Black Flag, mostly Henry Rollins.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they did end up out there, but they started in DC, which is where all those guys are from. Rollins is from there. Mm-hmm. And then another one of the bands that I threw at you, they were based, the Meatmen, they were based in DC for a while. And they were, kind of that 80s punk. Okay. I mean, they started in the very early 80s, and they were punk. What I kind of handed to you was a little more metal tinged. Mm-hmm. But you were starting to get a lot of punk-ish bands coming out in the 80s, and that didn't go full metal. Metallica was heavily influenced by punk. Mm-hmm. Anthrax was very punk influenced. They were more Ramones influence, and Metallica was influenced by the Misfits and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So there are bands that didn't just go metal; they were punk, but for some reason, punk just didn't stick around. Mm-hmm. It kind of started to just fade out until 94 when Green Day kind of broke punk, or even before that when people were talking about how much punk influence Nirvana was. and they were
Right.
influenced by punk, but I would never call Nirvana punk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a slight against Nirvana. I just didn't feel like they were punk-ish.
Sure. Well, like definitely some element. Do you think like the term became like too widespreading?
Yeah.
Like so like now it's just a label for anything that's sort of counterculture or just kind of challenges the norms whatsoever. Because that's one thing that I was kind of reading into is like nowadays, like even it's so broad that somebody like Kanye West can be considered punk.
Yeah.
Even as commercial as he is and as like, you know, brand oriented as he is, which is almost completely counter to what punk originally stood for, was like kind of this anybody can do it kind of DIY mentality sort of stuff. It's become such an overarching term. It's almost like, I don't know, it's like rock. When you just say rock, like how many thousands of different bands can you throw into that?
Yeah.
Just that umbrella term.
Yeah, it's just a huge, covers too much ground to, rock is a great example because some people feel like any band that just has guitars and bass and drums and doesn't play country music is rock and roll.
Sure, yeah.
And even some country music sounds rock and roll and vice versa.
And it's such a weird term because, like, I mean, honestly, like almost anything, I would say like up to the Hendrix era, that's rock and roll. And then it became something else.
Yeah.
Because like so like somebody like Buddy Holly, that's like rock and roll to me in terms of like if you say rock, like I'll go with you to like you want to say Guns N' Roses. Okay. Yeah. They're rock. But when you have that tagline rock and roll, I think like 50s and early 60s, that kind of style. Because it was something different then. I mean, I had a professor in college who put it a good way, and we're way past the nice boy clock. So he was trying to explain to me when rock and roll first came out, and you're thinking of like Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, people like that. He was like, you can't put yourself in the mindset of like parents finding out that their daughter had gone to a rock and roll show or that their son was in a rock and roll band. He's like, you can't even touch it, but the closest thing is today if you went to a fuck the bitch show. That's the music is fuck the bitch. He's like, that's what it was like back then because of how conservative America was in the 50s and the early 60s. That's what that sort of, so in its own right, it was almost kind of like the way people responded to punk in the 70s and 80s is how people were responding to rock and roll in the 50s and 60s, and that envelope just kept getting pushed.
And that's probably the best analogy right there. I mean, that was because, punk was snotty attitude and they dressed funny and their hair was weird. Well, so were the Beatles. I mean, when the Beatles came over to the States in 64, their hair was like nobody in the States wore their hair touching their ears. That was, you were called all kind of names that I won't mention, but but the Beatles did it, and that was just outrageous.
But then by the 70s, you look at even like popular TV shows. Like my mom was watching Little House on the Prairie the other day, and that was filmed in the 70s. They all got long hair. But so then the punks take over, and it's like, oh shit, well we gotta step up our game. And they're like, oh, mohawk, or spike the hair. And
now that's just commonplace, just like the piercings and all that stuff. But and punk is still around. I just think that, and this is nothing against Green Day, their earlier stuff I would consider maybe punkish, but I would not call them a punk band. I mean, they're a good hard rock band, and I don't want to take away from them, but unfortunately some people, when they heard Green Day, that was their first quote experience of punk music was Green Day or the Offspring. I mean, I like the Offspring too, but they aren't very punk rock anymore. They're just they're a hard rock band.
But maybe like those first couple albums, Ixnay, and
even before that, like Ignition was a punk album. Even Smash had elements of punk, but that's not like, that wouldn't be a good starting point if you wanted to get into punk.
Right. Well, and because it had been around for so long at that point, there was no way for it to be uninfluenced by other things. Right.
Yeah. And even like even punk during the punk era. I mean, you listen to Ramones songs, and they've got doo-wop influences in there.
Right, sure, yeah.
The Clash, they were, they used all kind of instrumentations, almost like ska or something, to that, which I think ska kind of came from that type of punk rock. That and the Clash weren't the only ones, but I'm just using them as an example. But that kind of like danceable punk music,
right,
and then
like skank beats and stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of where ska kind of got its roots. Was just we're a punk band, but we have a horn section. So
right, yeah.
Which
I think things get really muddy when you try to pin them down. Like that's why I've never really been a fan of genres. I'm almost more in favor of umbrella terms, just because you can sort of refer to something and then somebody can make their own judgment call on it. It's always so weird to me when people try to just like box in these labels with things, because it's always looking back. And I think that's where we run into trouble when you're talking about punk music, when it's in reference to something that had been happening for like 5 years, because that's the thing is bands in a scene listen to each other.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter the style that they're playing. What matters is like what people are going to pick up on. That's something that I would do at almost every show, is I would hear one song from one band that didn't play music anything like mine, but I could listen to that and be like, that's an element that I could take and turn into this other thing. And that's happening in this like spiderweb effect going outward. So how do you nail something down when you're trying to have this like purist sort of terminology?
Yeah.
I just don't think it works.
And there is no purist, it has to be spread, because exactly what you said. And people have been doing that since the first time somebody hit a rock with a stick. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone has been influenced by each other.
Yeah. And
especially in musical like areas like, Savannah metal scene. I'm sure everyone influences each other, or the Seattle scene. They all, the LA scene, all that. They all were kind of like exactly what you said, just taking bits and pieces and making it their own.
And when those bands travel around, a Seattle punk band goes to DC and sees Black Flag, they're taking something back with them, and then that changes the dynamic. And all these things can happen, and I think that's just why it's so. I would almost rather the umbrella terms without the. Some people get so snobby with the terminology, and it's not punk, it's hardcore, and it's like, it's close enough though, right? I don't know. It's like
they're close. They're close cousins. So
sure.
Just like heavy metal. I mean, in the 80s, heavy metal was anything from Slayer to Warrant.
Right. Yeah.
They were both called heavy metal, and one does not sound like the other. But that was the umbrella term. Oh, okay. They're playing loud music. All right, they must be heavy metal.
Right.
It's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
We'll give you that.
And what's the difference between country and western? I still don't know.
I don't either. That reminds me of that scene from the Blues Brothers.
Yep, we got both kinds.
Country and western.
That ain't no Hank Williams song. Dude, without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay.
Call it in the air.
Heads.
I don't even know where that went. Oh, it's heads.
So
you defer, you take it, however you want to start, man.
I'm going to talk about the first one I sent to you.
Let's do it. I'm excited. I think, and we were talking a little bit before this, you were saying that I was going to be pretty surprised at how you took my picks. I think you'll be surprised, not by my reaction to these songs, but like where they initially placed, and then where they ended up after listening to them for an extended amount of times. 'Cause, I mean, I listened a lot last week to the songs that we had suggested. I realized I definitely needed to listen more if we were going to continue to do, like, I needed to take it a little bit more seriously. But I doubled my listen time within like the first 2 days of having these songs. And I think that not only speaks to my seriousness of like how I want to do this project, but also just the quality of music we had this week. And that playlist that I put on Spotify for you guys, capital LSD parenthesis LSD, and then the C is in parentheses. That playlist is going to be fantastic.
Yes.
For anybody that just loves music, and then there's going to be some weird ones in there for sure. But I definitely think you'll be surprised at how it started and then where it ended. And then you challenged me to see if I could figure out the thematic element that kind of connected all these songs.
Yes.
I really did my homework. I was trying really hard. The hard thing was like if you looked at it like a Venn diagram, it was like things that would match 2 but not 1. And so putting that puzzle together. So I was thinking, what if I get a guess before each one of your suggestions, because I might need a couple.
Mm-hmm. Here's how we'll do this.
Okay.
You can guess before each one of the songs.
Yeah.
And if you're wrong all 3 times, when at the end of the show, I will tell you what the theme is.
Okay.
Fair enough?
That's fair enough.
But if you guess right, then I'll let you know. I'm not going to.
Then I get to give you a spanking.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Off air. Okay. So here's my first guess. Punk songs with guitar solos.
That's a good guess, and
Not
that's probably true, but that's not.
That was my best guess. God damn it! Fuck. All right.
Well, sorry.
Hey, that's how it goes.
But yeah, so the first one I threw at you is a song called "Rocket '88" by the second wave punk band by the name of Warrior Soul, and it's off their second record, "Drugs, God, and the New Republic." Warrior Soul, first of all, is one of my all-time favorite bands.
Very cool.
Their first record came out in 1990, and they are still putting out albums, still touring.
Really? Right
yes.
now? Okay, wow.
Still, well, they're not touring, obviously, right now, but
yeah.
they are still there. They only have one original member, it's the lead singer, Corey Clark, who started the band.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, between his political rants, which they're not too over the top where I think anyone can enjoy them. He's not too in one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
He's just, and they're very like dated, in his rants. When he's not singing about things that mean something, he has a lot of fun and has songs about drinking or going out and partying. I mean, it's a nice like balance.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have one song on the album where he's like, this or that against this political party or that, and then the next song is about partying and drinking.
Hey, that's how some people live their life.
I mean, Corey Clark, he's still, pack a day, whiskey and beer kind of guy.
Whoa.
I mean, and he's in his 50s.
He's been doing it since the 80s.
Yeah, he's been around for a while.
Good for him.
But this is actually the first album I discovered by them or really listened to when it came out in 91. And it completely blew me away. Like I fell in love with this band, and I'm still in love with this band. So this song is one of those good time songs, for lack of a better word. I mean, obviously lyrically, he's not doing very well. I think it says my power got cut off. I can't afford a phone. But you know that I'm electric when I go out alone.
Right.
It's like no matter what, I'm a rocket 88, and we'll get to that at the end of the show. But it's just in your face, punk attitude with a little sliver of heavy metal.
Okay.
And that has been kind of Warrior Soul's. They still have that same attitude, even though he's got different band members with him. It's still that same, and he still calls himself a punk.
Okay.
So
can't knock the hustle.
So I will slide it back over to you and let you kind of tell me how you and Warrior Soul related to each other.
First impressions, this was definitely my favorite, just in terms of like where everything placed at the time. I think I really gravitated towards how well it was recorded. I loved all the elements, like that fast pace, like really like ripping intro. Like I loved the fact that there was a guitar solo in this kind of song, because that was why my first guess was punk songs with guitar solos, because all of these are kind of, these bands you were saying are in that second wave of punk. I was sort of thinking that as like a big turning point for the genre, because before that it seemed like people were almost trying to dismantle guitar solos. Like, the Ramones had that solo in I Want to Be Sedated. I think it's just one note. Sort of, people were actively trying to get rid of that as an element in their songs. And I was wondering if that just was the marker for a transition. That was one thing that I was blown away by in all of these songs that you suggested, is the quality of the guitar solos. They're emotional, they're not too technical, but they're very skillful. Like these would be very tricky solos to map out, and if you were going to learn it verbatim, as it were, like that, these would be very intense solos to learn. But Yeah, I like the I liked the song. It was a nice in between of like I can definitely see why they would call it punk, but it didn't, you know, it didn't strike me as the same way as like listening to earlier punk music.
Mm-hmm.
It's very like the quality's better, the I think the writing's better.
Mm-hmm.
Lyrically, it's still sort of in that same vein.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't have to be the deepest or most complex, but
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. Yeah, I really enjoyed the song, and now I'm going to listen to you tell me what it's about.
Well,
Because I could not figure it out.
It's about what you think it is. It's just
I'm a hell raising.
yeah, and I will give you a hint. The title of this song is something we're going to talk about at the end of the show.
Okay, is it about Challenger? I can't remember when the Challenger
that was
was.
86.
Oh, okay,
And that would be really morbid.
Well, I was like, I'm gonna party till
Easy.
I die.
Let's.
Hey.
But Corey Clark has always surrounded himself with good musicians.
Mm-hmm.
He likes, even though he's punk, he wants his music to sound good. Sometimes he gets a little experimental and artsy with some of his stuff, but but he usually saves that for he has some spoken word albums that he does under his own name.
Okay.
And so that's always really cool. But he's a wordsmith, and I know Rocket 88 is not.
Yeah.
That's not a good example of what he's capable of writing. And I would actually.
Sure. But it's a good chorus.
It is, yeah, and it's fun, and it makes you want to just pump your fists. It's like the kind of song that like you listen to when you've just clocked out of work and you're on your way home, and you're like,
definitely.
I'm either gonna go to the bar, or I'm just gonna, pound some beers and just see what happens, and just who cares?
It's a Friday night song for
yeah.
sure. That's what it struck me as. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have any money, but I don't care.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Get
I'm gonna go
drunk.
bump beers off my friends.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just the attitude. But yeah, for you and even for our listeners, go listen to Corey Clark's spoken word stuff. It is very interesting and very, very good. He is one of the earlier influences on my writing.
Okay.
Of course, I can't write like him. I wanted to so bad, and I'm like, dude, I've got a dictionary, a thesaurus, and I still can't. I can't match his insight.
Well, that's something I was unaware of, so I'm definitely gonna go check that out. I'm gonna leave Warrior Soul alone in terms of because I'm excited to see if there's some more deep cuts that come in down the line. That's kind of one of those things is like with the some of these bands, it's like, do I deep dive and then just like they're off limits moving forward, but like when it's a band that's this good, it's like I kind of want to hold off and like see which way you direct me at least one or two more times before I like.
There'll be more from them in the future. So
I really this was a really good first step, and this is definitely a song I would recommend to people if you're looking for just a good quality Friday night song kind of thing.
Yeah.
Get your weekend party going. Like great song, really really strong song, and like this is something that like takes me back to like when I was in Montana welding. Like you were kind of saying, when I would get off work and it would be getting late, and I would just blare music all the way home, get me to drive a little bit faster, get me to the party a little sooner. So that's where this song kind of struck me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, like I said, it's not his best vocal or lyrics, but it is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a fun, rockin', blow off some steam kind of song.
That is interesting to me that like these lyrics are definitely a little bit more on the basic sort of side in terms of like they're not complex. There's probably not a whole lot of subtext or anything too deep behind him, but it's interesting to me that he is a spoken word artist as well. That makes me want to check out that side of it too. So
he was actually started out as a spoken word artist, and on a dare, he created the band Warrior Soul.
That's an interesting dare.
It were a bet. It was like someone bet him he couldn't make a band that would, be somewhat successful, and within a year they were signed to a major label.
Very cool.
Yeah, he did it out of a bet or a dare.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think of like a schoolyard dare. Like, I
dare you to
dog
start a
dare you to
band.
start a punk band. Yeah.
But and the thing, the sad thing about Warrior Soul is I love them, and they came out at a time when punk could have broken through. I mean, this album came out in early '91 before Nevermind came out, and to me, this was more punk rock than what people were saying Nevermind was.
Okay, yeah.
This could have broken back in, but for some reason, no one would. Label support was not there for Warrior Soul. they couldn't get their songs on the radio. Headbangers Ball, I think, played 1 or 2 videos by them, and that was it. And then never again. I mean, they just could not get the backing, and they toured like animals.
Yeah.
And I never understood why they weren't huge.
Yeah, it's so strange what takes off and what doesn't. And then, like you're saying, people calling Nevermind punk when it's really not.
No.
And I mean, I would almost say, like, in terms, if we're going to put it up against punk as an influence, Pixies inspired Nevermind way more than punk music.
Yeah,
like,
it did.
Because there's so much, like, one of the key things in that album is dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest things Pixies were known for. And were Pixies inspired by punk? Sure. And was Kurt Cobain inspired by punk? Sure. But, like, in terms of, like, it's weird when people give it that they use that nomenclature for something. Like, oh, it's so punk. And then it becomes successful. Whereas you have a perfectly good punk album like this, and it doesn't generate that success, but it seems like that's what people are interested in. It's weird what takes off and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I thought this was the perfect marriage of punk and slices of heavy metal. But, you know,
it's a really interesting pinpoint in time, and if I would definitely recommend this if you're into metal, if you're into punk, and you want kind of a cool hybrid of the two.
This is it.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to recommend.
Recommend it to everybody.
All right.
Your grandma, your aunt, my aunt, my grandma.
Yeah.
This is a song that I'm going to play at my next acoustic show.
That would be amazing.
It would be so bad.
It doesn't matter. But no one knows this song, so they think it was an original. If they like it, you tell them, "Oh yeah, I wrote this."
I'll just slow it way down and finger style, like finger pick it, and then it'll be this whole new thing.
Yeah,
like,
and just
oh
like
my God.
Instead of Rocket 88, you're like Missile 75 or something like that. Torpedo.
Projectile 72. Yeah.
No one will know. Is that me? You just give me that wink, and I'm on to you. But it's okay.
Yeah. So my turn.
Toss back at me, sir.
So my sort of theme for this week, and there was no like mystery behind it. What I was just kind of going for is, I wanted to present you with 3 artists that if I had told you beforehand, without the songs, if I was like, I'm recommending this artist, and this artist, you would have probably been like, ugh, okay. And it would have been sort of like the Cardi B thing, like without you knowing what the music was. But I wanted to pitch songs that would make you kind of raise an eyebrow, like, oh, okay, like this. I wanted you to sort of have an expectation from the name. And then just be sort of taken aback by the actual song itself. So that was my goal. And I'm pretty sure I accomplished it with at least 1, maybe 2. I don't know if I did, but I was really confident in these picks in terms of just, I mean, definitely one of these for sure. I was confident at least one would strike a chord with you. No pun intended. Music.
Yeah. Well, we shall see.
So the first song I pitched is "Slide Away" by Miley Cyrus.
Yes.
It's not new, but it's more recent in terms of release, and I don't think it's gotten a lot of radio play. This was more of like where I found it was on YouTube, and I think it was released as a single, and I think it's the only thing out. So I don't know if this is part of a wider release. I don't think it's going to be. I think this was just kind of something to keep everybody aware that Miley Cyrus is still there. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I got from it.
Okay. Yeah, we totally forgot about her.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So "Slide Away" by Miley Cyrus. First impressions.
I really didn't hate it. It was a nice kind of mellow. It was a breakup song. I even did some research, and apparently, supposedly, it's about her divorce from one of the Hemsworth brothers.
Yep.
Not Thor, but the other one.
Yeah.
Or the other one.
Yeah, the one that lives in the ocean.
Yes. So
like a homeless mermaid.
It was. It was interesting. It was lyrically. It felt like she was trying to go somewhere deeper, and it just, to me, lyrically, it got redundant.
Okay.
But in her defense, though, if you listen to enough breakup songs back to back, there's gonna be a level of redundancy.
Sure. So
I won't take that from her. It to me, I felt like this is the breakup song you write 10 years after you've written Driver's License.
Okay, which is perfect time. Like
Yeah.
that's about right for the
Yeah.
So you would say it's like a surface level, like, or it's a level deeper than something like Driver's License.
Yeah, it is. It is deeper than Driver's License.
It's an attempt at poeticism.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, some of the lyrics were pretty good, and I actually researched what was alluded, what she was talking about, and there were a lot of references to her ex-husband.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, maybe she only wanted to go this deep because you don't want to get too deep and put everything out there on the table. Some things you want to keep to yourself. But like I said, I didn't hate it. I have very little experience with Miley Cyrus's music, popular music.
Oh, you're gonna get way more accustomed.
And I'm used to her poppier stuff, her bubblegum lollipop Party in the USA stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew that she'd went through that phase where she got crazy and she's swinging from a wrecking ball naked. I guess that was her saying, "Hey, I'm an adult now." Which okay,
right. Well, and it's such a breakaway from, I think, when you are subjected to that Disney Channel lifestyle. Like, I would come out of that wanting to be a whore.
Yeah. I mean, it is, and she's grown up with, a lot of people from my generation know this, from Miley's generation probably don't know this, but her father, Billy Ray Cyrus, was for about a year huge.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where we get into a little area of why I don't like Miley Cyrus. This is an interesting story, and I'll keep it short. It has nothing against her personally. In fact, I don't
know her at all, really.
No, I really don't know her. Okay. Now, her dad.
Yeah.
Okay, I think 91, 92, he released the worst song that's ever been recorded called Achy Breaky Heart. And if you were alive and conscious during that month's span that song was popular, it was number one on the charts. His album was number one on the charts. It was Achy Breaky Heart everything.
Oh.
And it was horrible.
Not a good time for Jonathan Humphrey to be alive.
And here's...
Well, I was a baby, so I was...
I was in high school.
Yeah.
Here's where the bone of contention comes in.
Here we go.
That album stayed at number one for, it felt like ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because his album with that sorry, horrible, terrible song was number one, my favorite band in the whole wide world, their album could only peak at number two, and that's Megadeth's Countdown to Extinction.
Oh.
It peaked at number two only because Achy Breaky Heart and that whole record would not leave the number one spot.
Oh, okay, so this is a big point of contention for you. Like, you're ready to stab somebody.
Well, maybe not that.
It's been 30 years, but yeah.
If it wasn't for this horrible song, Megadeth would have had their number one record in 1992. So Billy Ray stole that from Megadeth and from me, Billy Ray.
Yeah.
So Billy Ray's out of the spotlight now, but unfortunately,
well, not entirely. I mean, they talk about this, like, just the power of one single. Mm-hmm. He comes back and he does it again with Lil Nas X and Old Town Road. Like,
that's right.
That's so, a lot of people. I'm not a fan of that song. For reasons that are like, I get it. But so many people, we get back to this like labeling kind of conversation we were having earlier. A lot of people that I knew, it was like me and then the two musicians I was playing with at the time were the only people that didn't like the song. Me, the two musicians, Sam, probably you.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I could not find a musician that hated that song. It was weird. I would talk to, we were recording with a guy at Georgia Southern, and he was like, "No, I love it." Talked to my fiance's brother is a drummer in Wisconsin, and he's very good, and he loved it. And all these people were telling me the same thing. It's like the perfect blend of hip hop and country, and I was like, it's not really either. It's like hip hop a little bit. I could definitely see it, but in terms of country, what's country about? You got Billy Ray Cyrus singing, and what's country about? It's it's a weird kind of labeling thing, and I get why it's popular, but that's just not a satisfying explanation for me. And to each their own. I totally understand why it blew up, but again, I just like, I'm not surprised. I mean, it was Billy Ray Cyrus. He had one of the biggest singles of all time in Achy Breaky Heart.
Yeah.
Comes back and does it again. Yeah, not surprising at all. He groomed one of the most successful artists of the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And up till now, I mean, Miley Cyrus has huge star power.
She does.
So he knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, sorry that he,
I mean,
boxed Megadeth out. But
yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of nerve for, and it would be different if he had recorded if it was something good, and obviously millions of people love that song.
Yeah,
that's
whatever. Do you think it's a point of contention for you because a band like Megadeth, like the emotional quality to these songs, like how much work went into the recording process, the writing process, like the depth of some of these songs versus so you have this sort of thing where in your mind this is a full course meal that can sustain you, whereas like Achy Breaky Heart, some people just want a Twinkie kind of thing. Is that what's
that's
happening?
what it is? Yeah. And he didn't even write that song. Like it was given to him to record.
I've heard, and I don't have any proof of this, but people have told me that was a stolen song. That there were these guys in the bluegrass scene, I think it was like Tennessee or Kentucky or something, and they had a song called Achin' Breakin' Heart, and then Dolly Parton lifted it and gave it to Billy Ray. That's a rumor I've heard. I don't know how.
I haven't heard that, but
is.
it's worth researching.
Yeah.
But yeah, because of him, I feel the sins of the father are passed on to the daughter. And I'm sorry, Miley. Nothing personal, but your dad.
Now you have to fight me because your dad's too old.
But other than that, back on the song, honestly, I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I mean, it just feels like a nice run-of-the-mill breakup pop song. I mean, I'm kind of, I'm very neutral about it.
Driver's License, Slide Away?
Yeah. It's definitely higher than Driver's License. It's got a higher maturity level. But I mean, if this is something that you like, I actually would recommend it. I would not recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Other than the fact that it's not something that I would listen to, I really don't have anything negative to say about it.
Yeah. It's not bad.
It's not bad, and it's I would say it's of its time, and that's a term I love to use.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean,
and that's kind of what I liked about the song is like it's modern sounding. It's got a lot of soul to it. I love the production, like the choruses. Like I love how they treated the sort of call and response lyrics or the vocals in the chorus. Like, and as you say, like the lyrics are maybe not definitely like not the heart of like the deepest things to write. I think sometimes when you're so close to something, it's hard to like how do you ride that line between giving too much away, like you said, and holding way too much back, and this is sort of like kind of teeters.
Yeah. And she used a lot of emotion in her voice,
definitely
singing it. So I'll give her that. I mean, so yeah. I mean, if I was a late teens girl going through a breakup, I would probably have that on repeat.
Yeah.
So
I definitely have it on repeat.
You had it on repeat on the way here, didn't you?
I did. That's on my liked songs for sure.
It's all right. I'll let you cry.
I want to get to that headspace, and sometimes I just need to slide away. Dude, when we were I was on the golf course when we and I were going back and forth with the like, just trying to be punny with the songs we picked this week. That's why I included Rocket 88 today, because we left that one out. So,
yeah, we did.
Yeah, so, all right. I think we can put Slide Away to bed.
Put it to bed. Back in the ocean.
Yeah. I'll go back to the city lights.
And I'll just...
I made you shower with it, though. That was my challenge for
And
this
I will
week.
say it sounded better in the shower than...
It's a good shower. Like, it's good to have, like, a good reverberant, like, echoey kind of... Like, it's a great song for that. It's very full sounding.
Yeah. And I did feel a little dirty, taking a shower with Miley. But I felt less dirty taking a shower with Miley at this age...
Yes.
Then maybe if I had taken
yeah.
15 years ago. That would have been weird.
You could party in the USA.
Or when she was Hannah Montana, which we won't get into the discussion we had earlier. I'm not a fan of any of it.
I remember saying at one point, like, and this was in the Hannah Montana days, and I was telling a friend, I was like, I've always thought Miley Cyrus was super hot, and my friend was like, dude, she's so young. I was like, she's like 2 years older than us. What are you talking about? Like, I was like, yeah, the content in the show is for younger
children.
girls. I was like, she
Yeah.
was born in like 89, dude.
Yeah, I mean, her first, I guess, job in the business was when her dad was on tour.
Mm-hmm.
After the shows, it was her job to go out on stage and collect all the panties and bras off the stage that were
Really?
thrown at her dad.
Well, and everybody's like questioning Wrecking Ball. Now you know where it comes from.
Yeah, now we know. She had to go
That's trauma.
gather up, middle-aged women's panties.
Gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
So, yeah, I kind of feel for her in that
God,
sense.
you can understand those.
Yeah, I think
that
she gets
2009 phase.
Yeah, she gets a bad rap, and I think it's not deserved.
I love her voice now. I heard that thing click. What does that mean?
I think we're good.
Okay. What are you trying to tell me, camera?
Everything's still working. It's plugged in, so
Yeah.
this will be the moment where we fill it with something else other than us looking at the camera talking.
Hey,
What's going on?
how you guys holding up? Okay, thumbs up.
Hey, you in the back, wake up.
Yeah. Hey, kick him.
Yeah, thank you. Hey,
He's up here.
So we're gonna put it to bed.
Yep.
But I will give it a recommend. Definitely give it a recommend. So,
Yay.
All right, back to you, my friend.
Back to me.
And we are going to jump right into that 80s punk wheel wagon, whatever that meant. The Meatmen.
Oh, I got to do my guess.
Oh yeah, do your guess.
Um,
And you can use the hint I gave you.
what was the hint?
Oh, I'm not going to give it to you again.
Fuck. What we're talking about Rocket 88 at the end?
Yeah.
Was that the hint?
Yeah.
It's a horrible hint.
Well,
That's
I don't have to
it's a
give you any
wor-
good
I know
hints.
you don't have. Well, all right. I get what you. Here's my guess: is like the voice of the song. So like the, you wouldn't use this term, but the narrator, or I guess the best way, the front man, the singer, taking on the role of somebody they dislike, or somebody them taking on the role as a villain almost.
That's only true, though, for one, maybe two songs, though.
Okay.
Rocket 88 is not like, that's just a regular Joe. He's not a...
Okay, I didn't know if he was like, I didn't know if he was like sexually harassing.
No, he's just being a
I'm gonna
regular
drink and
Joe.
go touch people. that's the only thing I was like, and like
That's his hope.
it really. I knew it really didn't work for the next song we're doing either. But that I just like. I mean, I racked my brain over this, and like I said, a lot of this was like worked for two, but not for all three. So.
And I'm really building it up too much. It's really not going to be that satisfying when I tell you the thing.
Oh no!
No, it's good. I thought it was, but anyway.
Well, I mean, honestly, any answer will be satisfying at this point because I've racked my brain. But yeah, going along with that, this is definitely the strongest case for somebody taking on the role of somebody they hate.
And in that case, you listen to this song correctly. And once again, the song is from the Meatmen. It's called True Grit, and it is off their 1986 album Rock and Roll Juggernaut.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is a fine example of a band that was very punk, and this is an album, and I don't know if this was their first touch into it. I think it was, where they got a little more of a metal feel to them, because there's a lot of heavy metal elements in this record. Now, obviously, these guys are jokesters, obviously, but in a very 80s un-PC kind of way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to other things off this record, it's a take it with a grain of salt album.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, you have to understand, and they are un-PC about everything. They even make fun of themselves, and you have to take it as they're playing a character. These are, I would compare them to Andrew Dice Clay as a comedian.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I think that's a good example.
And this was something that was kind of common. Fear, punk band Fear did it. You know, Lee Ving always came off as just like this horrible human being, but it was a character.
G.G. Allen almost, even though he was a little bit more real.
Yeah, G.G. Allen really was.
But just in terms of like sort of the same thing. Like, I think, especially as somebody like dissecting things on an artistic level, it's such a useful artistic tool to use something you hate, to become
Yeah.
something you hate, almost like when you become a character. It's an easy way to not only protect your ego as a person in terms of like trying to make it very clear that you're not this thing. It's such a useful artistic tool because you're having to put yourself in the head of it's knowing your enemy really is what it boils down to, and that's and that can be a useful thing. And this song is definitely a little bit more jabby and not meant to
Very
like,
jabby.
not meant to like. He's clearly not saying this is who I am, accept me for who I am. But he is providing a good criticism of a culture that he doesn't relate with, I would say.
And it is a little exaggerated.
Sure. I mean, first two lines. I mean, where this song debuted for me was actually at number 3. It was like, was the bottom one. But again, I'll reveal where they ended up at the end. But this one debuted at number 3. And it's grittier use the title. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow because the first 2 lines is my wife laments I drink, I'm crass, plug my teenage daughter in the, and then he farts with his mouth and you're pretty sure what he's talking about. So to grab attention, that's one of the key things in art is to stand out. And you do that pretty quick when you say something like that.
He's setting up the precedent.
Whose ears aren't going to pick up at that show or listening to that record at home.
And the thing is, especially, and I'm not trying to be ugly in this, but us being from the South, chances are we either know or have met someone who could fit into this song.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's as sad as it is, and I'm not saying that's just in the South, but it's common, not common, but it's more common in the South. And but we also know somebody that can fit in that category.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Montana, and I have friends who would identify. I feel like they would self-identify as redneck or maybe country. And what's interesting is so this song is essentially just a rap sheet of stereotypes.
Yes.
But the interesting thing is they would agree. They would self-identify with a lot of this stuff. Maybe not the first 2 lines.
Hopefully
but,
not.
Jack and Coke in the morning, for sure. It's interesting because some of it is definitely outside of the realm of possibility for them. I would say 100% of the people that I know that would self-identify would not commit acts of incest.
No.
I would say that they would look at having a 4-wheeler that's 60 feet high as a bit extreme.
Or snowmobiling over bunnies.
They would identify with that. No, there's
apparently it's fun.
I had a friend who would intentionally swerve to try to hit squirrels and shit. There's not a lot to do in Montana. Hunting's a big part of that culture. It's something that I would not do. I would get no satisfaction running over an animal.
Yeah.
But if I was going to provide sustenance for my family by hunting a deer, absolutely. I mean,
that's different. That's not malicious.
My dad and we went quail hunting a couple weeks ago, and that was really fun. I enjoyed it, and it's a bird that jumps up, and its defense is how fast it is versus how fast my shotgun fires. There's a fine line there for sure, but it's like, is it fair chase? Not really. But again, I ate quail.
Yeah.
Couple Sundays later, so it provided sustenance. I wasn't just running them over in the road and feeling.
That's like
feeling
serial
bigger.
killer.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah. So it's interesting because he does. It's like there's a spectrum, right, and where people fit in. Here's the other thing: is I met a lot of really sick people in Montana. Heard stories of really dark shit happening. So there is this level of is it because they're a redneck they're committing acts of incest? Absolutely not. This is a personal thing because there's, in terms of the people I met, I'm not a single one of them would do that. But I heard stories of people who had done it to people I met, so it's what I find about city life is there's a lot more violent crime.
Mm-hmm.
What I found in being out there in the more remote, smaller towns, there's a lot more sex crime. And it's sad, but I don't know if it's baked into the culture, but in terms of like the lifestyle, it's eerie how commonplace violent crime is here, how commonplace sex crime was there.
And maybe it's the being isolated and not having a lot of choices. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be funny, but that's like
there's something. It's a pattern you can't help but notice.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That being said, I mean the singer touches on issues while at the same time being funny. So it's a very powerful artistic tool.
Yeah, he's doing it in an exaggerated way, putting humor into something where he's, it's like, he's holding these characters. He's holding a mirror in front of the people that fit in that stereotype, and that's the only way you kind of see it.
Right.
Kind of like how in the Borat movies, Borat acts like all these different types of people, and it brings that out of the people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It gets them comfortable enough to show their true colors.
Right. Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yes, you were.
Yep.
But that's kind of like the Meatmen, and the lead singer's name is Tesco V. That's an awesome punk name.
That is an awesome name. Yeah.
And that's his voice. He's got that. Those of you who've heard the Meatmen, he's just got like this, like baritone, like just yelling voice almost. He just sounds like the kind of guy that's probably guarding the keg at the party. And, but yeah, I mean, they use a lot of crass humor in their music. Now, this is definitely of its time. This album came out in 1986. Obviously, it would be hard to get away with the stuff on this album now, even in a world of Cardi B.
Yeah, sure.
Just because it's so un-PC.
Even this song, I think you run such a risk of not only offending a lot of, like, let's say more of the social justice types because of just the nature of what you're talking about, but you're also offending the people that you're intending to offend. So you're offending everybody. This is an equal opportunity offender kind of song.
Yes.
And as you say, the album, I didn't go deeper into it, but I'm sure this would not fly today.
No. And a lot of the songs, they do that thing where it's either a song that insults a group of people or a person, or it's like a party song, where they mostly, unlike Warrior Soul, like they are so exaggerated with the drugs and the partying, and just, it's like a million times what would be like normal. But it's done to be punkish, to be humorous, to be, not even shock value. It's just, it's just like if a bunch of dudes you knew that just like to talk about drinking and hated certain people had a band.
Yeah.
But this is just, pretend, so to speak, I guess, for lack of a better word.
It's, It's like role playing almost. Yeah.
And Tesco V has actually gone back in recent times and actually apologized for some of the stuff they did earlier that were a little bit, now looking back in hindsight, might have been very xenophobic, very homophobic. And he's come back now and say, it was a different time, and, that's not how I feel anymore. I grew up and matured like everybody else.
Sure.
It was of its time. It's not how I feel now. I don't hate women. I don't hate, gays. I don't hate anybody of a different color or race. It's just
Right.
Just people weren't, things like that were able to slide different back then.
Well, and do you think, like, was he saying a lot? Because what it seems like in this song particularly is he's talking about, he's singing to these people as if he's this redneck, and he doesn't want equal rights for people. He loves Ronald Reagan. He doesn't want the specific line of, like, fudge packing homos and dykes, that's something that in the 80s a redneck would throw out constantly. Yeah. So that's what I kind of read it more as, is that he doesn't hold these views.
No, he doesn't.
So I think I would say there's not a whole lot of reason to apologize or even give it the distinction of the time, because he's saying this person who thinks this way is an asshole, and I don't have anything in common with them. So the need to apologize is like, I don't know. I don't know how.
This was not one that he would apologize for. The one that I think that he apologized for the most, and I'm just going to tell you the title of the song, and you can figure it out. This it's a silly song. The title of the song is "Tooling for Anus."
Okay.
So you just
yeah. All right. Was that off this album?
No, it was before. It was before this.
Okay.
Yeah. So you make your own assumptions as to what group of people they might have been ribbing, poking fun at.
Okay. Oh, so there's a level
there's
of
an actual
jesting.
Yeah.
They're throwing out jabs. Okay. So again, it's sort of like, I definitely think it's important to update. I think in terms of like, I don't think you should release a song like that now. Times have changed, and we're more aware of things. I think we all have a lot more compassion, and we want to continue to move in the right direction. I think where you run into trouble is when you try to change the rules on shit that's already happened.
Right.
Because as artists, it's important to push the envelope. That goes for any sort of activism. You have to push. You're not going to achieve anything by being complacent. And then you maybe like you reform your tactics as you move forward. You know, like but you can't change the rules for the past.
No.
You know. Like for a long time, like in terms of like just something very specific, I think mongoloid was a medical diagnosis.
Yeah.
So you don't get to go back and like, you know, we need to, not that you would, but arrest this doctor for using that term when that was the medical term at the time. It's like, no, moving forward, we don't use that anymore. We have more refined techniques of diagnosing and we have better terminology. So that's the best example I could come up with. And I think that's important, is to like let things that happen, keep them in mind, learn from them, and move forward.
Well, they're a stamp for that time. And,
exactly, yeah.
You know, we move on. And like I said, most of their stuff it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's to be taken with a grain of salt. If you're easily offended, the Meatmen is not a band for you.
Sure.
But you should have known that before. No, not you personally, but
Right.
If the name of the band is the Meatmen, what do you think you're going to get?
Sure.
You know, there's no Disney versions of their songs. But like I said, it's mostly just parody, and you know, and this is a fine example of it. Some of them, like I said, they wrote a song about like racing cars and doing drugs, and it doesn't mean that they're racing cars and doing drugs themselves, but it's just. And the 80s were a different time. It was, you know, people didn't get upset about every little thing. So you were free to kind of like be like a parody, like Andrew Dice Clay. You know, that was his heyday. And, you know, he was just playing a character.
Still doing it.
Yeah, he's still
doing it. And now
he's
kind of become the character.
Yeah, well, like, yeah. But
Larry the Cable Guy, same thing. It's interesting. I think I would like to wrap. I would say I would definitely recommend this song. I think it gives you a good insight into like where people's attitudes were at the time. I mean, this is. They say that the best metal and punk music always comes out around the time that a Republican gets into office.
Yeah.
So you know, you think Ronald Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2. Like a lot of good music comes out around those times because there's a lot of pushback to conservative culture, and it's. I think there's a healthy balance that needs to be maintained between being open-minded, but also keeping stuff that's working. You know, there's a delicate balance there, and when something shifts too far to the right, there needs to be a pushback to the left. And the same thing, when there's something swings too far left, we need to bring it back to the right, and like that shift always needs to be happening.
Oh yeah.
And so I think this gives you a good, not only historical insight into what people's attitudes were at the time, but the response to it. Yeah. And I think in terms of maybe not a political song so much, but a sociological, like a cultural song. This is I think this is a very important point in history.
Yeah, and it was just the 80s. That was just a thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So
it's a really it is a fun, sort of weird, upbeat, and kind of
wait a
sort
minute
of response to it. Yeah.
But they do have a lot more fun songs on this record, so you know, if you ever get to where you want to just explore the whole album. There might be some more. They might show their head again, so maybe not.
Yeah. I'm gonna hold off. I want to hear more of the Meatmen, and then once we put them to bed, I'm gonna listen to the way they should be listened to.
All right. So you recommend, huh?
I definitely recommend.
All right.
How do you feel about taking a quick break?
Sure.
Let's do it halfway.
Right.
You guys won't even know we're gone.
Nope.
Break. Sound speed. 3, 2, 1.
All right.
We're back.
We are back.
You didn't even know we were gone.
We didn't. Yeah. We had a word from our sponsor.
Yeah. That's definitely what we'll start doing. Is we'll take a halfway break, and then if we do get sponsors, we'll plug them in there.
Yeah. All right. So now it's back.
Back on me.
On me.
Second song that I pitched to you, "Watermelon Sugar" by Harry Styles. First impressions.
Actually, it was a fun little song.
Yeah.
It really was. Maybe there was some double entendres in that song.
Definitely if you watch the music video.
I did not watch the music video. I just listened to the song.
When you watch the music video, it's pretty clear.
Okay, well,
trying to taste that pussy juice.
I kind of figured anyway. I was joking, but I mean, it was a fun little song. It had a nice little beat, and it was a cute song. It reminded me of basically like the kind of song you would write, or the way you would feel like early in a relationship. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, oh yeah, I'm really digging this chick, and I'm gonna go get some watermelon sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
some strawberries.
And this one is, I think it's been out for a while. I got to do my own homework again.
I remember seeing the release date. I knew, and it'd been a little while,
but it's still getting radio play pretty consistently. It's that catchy. It'll pop on top 40.
And I'd heard of Harry Styles. I can't tell you if I've ever heard any of his music before.
What if I told you he was in One Direction? Would you know that?
Okay, I know who One Direction is.
Yeah, that was like that was a couple years ago, and since then they've all kind of like split to do their own solo thing. And Harry Styles, I would say, is probably the most prominent.
Okay.
There's another one. I'm sorry, I don't follow One Direction or any of the people, but one is, I think he's more in the hip hop sphere now, and he's doing pretty well. So it's like there's levels, and like I think Harry Styles has come out of it doing the best. Okay.
So he's kind of like the Justin Timberlake of NSYNC.
Exactly.
Am I correct that he was in NSYNC? Was it NSYNC?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it was, like I said, a fun little upbeat song about maybe like first feelings of, love or being in love before you're actually
being in lust.
Yeah.
The what my friend would call the horny moon.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things for me in the song was like the guitar production. I loved how the guitars sounded, and
yeah, it was very musical.
it's the vocal productions, like very modern production techniques, but sounds good. Like a lot of the harmonies and stuff like that. And it's just, I mean, once you start thinking it's really catchy.
Yeah, it was very catchy.
Once you stop thinking, it's very catchy.
Yeah,
that's what I meant to say.
And I listened to it a handful of times. I listened to it a lot more than I listened to the Miley Cyrus song. I felt like two or three listens of the Miley song, and I pretty much had it down. This one I wanted to listen to a little more, and I mean, it's not my style of music. I think that's that should be my quote. But
put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's gonna be put on a t-shirt. But I didn't.
We'll have yours like the record shirt, and the back will be like, not my style.
Not my style. So, but I mean, it was a good little pop tune. I mean, just plain and simple. It was catchy. If it was something that would come on the radio, I'd bob my head, tap my foot, So,
and I kind of wanted to pitch this one as like, this is kind of where pop music is at. Like this was one of the biggest songs when it came out, and these three songs in particular, this is where pop music kind of stands as of like right. And these are people where if I told you you're gonna listen to a Miley Cyrus song this week, or I told you you're listening to like one of the members of One Direction, one of his songs, like I wanted it to be that definitely wouldn't say it's surprising, but maybe how you felt about it was a little surprising. That's what I was kind of going for.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to like it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was, and I was surprised that I was like, this is
and
catchy.
for you to not hate it is a good sign for me, because that's like, okay, like he's not throwing it in the trash completely.
No, I mean, it's like I said, it's not going to be on regular play in my music, but yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand why it's popular. If it's a popular song, it's very catchy. It's very musical. Nice little fun subject matter. I mean, that's almost the lines where we were talking about with some of the punk stuff. It's just he's just being a little more
I just want
colorful.
I just want to taste it. That should just be the whole song. I just want to taste it. Fun thing, when we release this episode, and we have the Instagram and stuff, I'll put up a video of this is a song Sam and I usually sing to our cat Winston. So we'll go watermelon sugar and meow. So we'll do that. It's real fun.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, but
he's got good comedic timing for a cat. So
well, that's good.
A lot of times we'll scream it to him, and he'll walk out of the room, and then he'll do his part. So yeah. Well, how would you recommend this?
Yeah, I'll recommend it.
Yeah.
It's a good, catchy little pop song.
Yeah,
and if you like pop music, and it's very reminiscent to me of like kind of where like early '90s pop music was going. So it's kind of got that good feel to it. So yeah,
this is definitely a pop song that somebody who is in a boy band would create and release, and whether like somebody else wrote it or this is I would say on brand for Harry Styles.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't dive deep into his stuff, and
like I said,
I'll definitely do more. I did less homework in terms of like release dates and stuff this time, but I'll get back to that. This was just a weird week for me. So we'll get back to that kind of sort of element of the show. But yeah, this is a on-brand song I think everybody should listen to, and then if you never want to listen to it again, I would not blame you.
But at least give it one listen.
It's interesting because like it's out of the three that I suggested, it's probably the one that if I had to listen to it for the rest of the time, this would be the one.
Okay.
So, like I listen to one of the things that helps me out is the playlist that I'm creating for us, and like that's what helps me keep the songs organized and in a place where I can continually listen. It's just easier than trying to search the songs. It's like it's just nice having them organized. And it's the one that like, so I have to, Slide Away plays, and then this one comes on, and it's like, I actually look forward to listening to this one the most. So, and it's a song that I hated the most when it was getting all the radio play, because you couldn't get away from it. It was just everywhere. So now that it's had its time in the sun and it's backing off a little bit, I actually enjoy it a little bit more. So.
And see, I don't listen to the radio, so this was like the first time I'd ever heard the song.
Yeah.
So it was like fresh to me.
Right.
So, well, I will give it a recommend.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Put it to bed.
All right. Now your final song.
That's right. Oh, I got to do my guess.
Yeah. Go ahead and do your guess.
I legitimately do not have a good guess further than that. Like I tried. Everything else is going to come up short that I thought of. Like one was like a very clear no, like Life in the City, because Rocket 88, yep. This song, yep. But True Grit, no. So I really don't have a good guess anymore. So let's just jump right into the song.
We'll jump right in the song. This is from a band called Manitoba's Wild Kingdom. They released one album called And You. And this is they released one single off this album, a song called The Party Starts Now, which is also a fun song. Manitoba's Wild Kingdom is actually made up of at least two members of the Dictators, the punk band The Dictators. And this is kind of what the Dictators evolved into for one record. So it does have that feel. I mean, it's very Dictators-y feel, if that's a word.
Sure.
But I mean, and I like this song. It's fun. It's not as hardcore parody as True Grit, but it is kind of like looking at life, and obviously in New York City in 1990, which is when this album was released, and it's just one person's maybe exaggerated opinion of their living situation.
Sure.
So I'll throw it to you. I mean, what do you think of New York, New York?
So this one debuted out of the three, debuted at number 2 for me.
Okay.
A little bit more in terms of the two. So like I would say like Rocket 88 was the most palatable starting out, and then True Grit was like the least palatable.
Yeah.
And then this one is sort of the perfect in between because the singing's a little bit like the way the lead sings is a little bit more in the vein of how the Meatman's frontman sings, whereas like the choruses are built more like the Rocket 88 chorus kind of thing. So it's kind of a nice middle ground. And this one, I really started to like it after I gave it repeat listens and I looked up the lyrics, which I did for all of them. But I saw it was tongue in cheek without being as like blatantly trying to offend people, because like I mean, obviously the term queens wouldn't really fly now outside of somebody and you're using that term endearingly. But I just think in terms of a chorus, that's such a great chorus. I'm a big fan of utilizing the whole band. I really like stuff like that. So when you have the backing singers singing the majority of the chorus, and then the lead singer hits them with the last line. So the I live in the city, I breathe dirty air, I ride trains with b-boys, and then the lead comes back in junkies, queens, and squares. That's a perfect setup for a catchy chorus. I loved it. Little tongue in cheek, but it's just it's just kind of fun because that would be your life living in New York City in the 90s, is you would ride a lot of trains with b-boys, junkies, queens, and squares. Real quick, what's a b-boy? I meant to look that up.
From what my understanding is, b-boys would be like people who hip hop.
Oh, okay, like with the
boombox.
Yeah, the boombox on the shoulder. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but I didn't know if it meant like bad boy or.
And that might, and I'm not sure for sure what the B means, but I almost think that means beatbox or boombox boys.
Okay.
B-boys, but
yeah.
But yeah, that's so you've got all your your stereotypes, But and the fact that he used the term squares. I mean, when was the last time someone called someone else a square?
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't think he was meant any offense, especially in the term queens. No. There could be a lot more offensive words he could have used, but I think it was, yeah. But it was just,
Well, and Queens is just so musical. It works in the chorus. It wouldn't. Some of those other words wouldn't work as well.
Right. But yeah, it was a fun song. But anyway,
it's one of the. It's the set. I love the verses are really, really cool. Just kind of putting you in that spot of like living in New York, and the choruses are a perfect response to the verse. Like you look forward to the chorus coming in, and then just to cap it off, like the New York. I think this song actually ended up getting put in a B film or something. It was called. It was something about living in New York. You might have it on the iPod there, but
I think I do.
It was just I could see why they would use this song in maybe a grittier movie about New York, not something like Home Alone 2, but
Mondo, New York.
New York, yeah. I really liked this song,
and that was a good representation of where New York City was in the late 80s. I mean, it was before they kind of cleaned up crime and everything. It was still kind of a dirty city,
Sure, yeah.
So,
and I think one of the things that I really like about this song is like, again, how well it was recorded, because we were talking about it on our break. That's what I really like about these songs, is that their production value and they sound good. They're really clean records, and a lot of early punk music was not recorded like that.
No.
Maybe some. I mean, the Ramones stuff is really well done. Sex Pistols stuff is really well done, but then you get like some like early. I mean, pick a band in that maybe like. Not the initial wave, but like kind of like right after. Like it's almost like they were intentionally recording stuff to sound bad. Like they put a tape recorder in the middle of the room and just had the band play. And it just, I'm just not going to listen to stuff like that, you know?
And that was kind of like their mindset, like those bands that like if it sounds too polished, then you're not punk anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, well,
And that's,
okay.
that's sort of where I would break from the ideology where it's like, we're talking about taking things too seriously is like when you're taking it to that extreme of like you're taking whatever punk means to you too seriously.
Yeah.
That's when I think you need to get out. Funny little story. So, not to say names, but there was a guy that he lived in a house with some of my friends, and he considered himself like. Here's the story: we were hanging out drinking one night. Everybody kind of turned in early except for me and this guy. And this dude was just a bum. Like he would like it was always he wanted a beer, he needed a cigarette, and if he had a pack, like a fresh pack, or he just bought an 18 rack. Nobody could get one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as you know, he's out of money and it's like it's the world's obligation to take care of him kind of thing. So we were up late and like he asked if he could just hang out. And I wanted to keep drinking, so I was like, yeah, we can hang out, but I'm going to talk shit. And I don't think he knew that I was going to talk shit about him, but I had a real problem with this guy. You know, I was like you know, in all fairness, I told him up front, I was like, I think it's really shitty that you bum beer from me and him and her and everybody else in this house, and you bum cigarettes from me and him and her and everybody else in this house. But as soon as you have your paycheck and you like stock up for the week, you're not repaying any favors.
Yeah.
And we got deeper into the conversation. He was talking to me. He's like, well, I just consider myself as somebody that's really committed to living the punk rock lifestyle. And I was like, what does that mean to you? And he went into it and he gave this long kind of thing of like, you know, and he spiced it up with shit like environmentally conscious and blah, 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 blah. But it all, like he finished and I was like, you're just a piece of shit. I said it to his face, you know, I told him like, you can hang out with me, but I'm going to talk shit.
You're not going to like it.
And that was my glimpse into what some people can kind of bastardize this thing. And I don't know what it means to live a punk rock lifestyle. I don't know what people what they meant initially, what their intent was. I don't know what they mean by it now.
Yeah.
But just so you know, if you're working a minimum wage job, you're living in a shitty situation, you're bumming, and you're doing this all intentionally, like you're not paying the fee at the punk show kind of stuff because you have a friend working. If you're doing that, you're just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You're not living some glamorous lifestyle, and you're not living this lifestyle out of some higher purpose intent. You're just being a bum.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's.
And it's not so much that, again, it's not that he would bum cigarettes or bum beer. It's that he would not return the favor. Mm-hmm. That's all he would have to do, and nobody would have a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, remember, you know, pay it back.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
that should be more baked into the punk rock lifestyle, I think.
Yeah, look out for each other. Take care of each other.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, two sides there.
Sure. So. Yeah. But I feel like, you know, a lot of these these punk bands, these punk musicians would not take kindly to somebody like that.
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
They'd take you out back and beat you.
Yeah, you're just kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You're just an asshole. So, but yeah. To since we're wrapping up your side of things, where these songs finished for me is New York, New York is number one.
Awesome.
I really enjoy it. I think it's like, you know, it might not be the punkiest thing I ever heard or the metalist thing I ever heard, but just in terms of like a really good sounding song, really like it, really enjoy it. Something that I would like attempt to play at some point for sure. Yeah. True Grit landed at number 2, just because I learned to appreciate how he sang and like what he was going for. And I think it was like a really creative, it took a lot of guts to make something like that. Like that's a really risky song. And
yes.
Probably evident as why they, you know, maybe it didn't do so well. Like this is not getting radio play and probably never will.
No.
So I like the artistic element of that. And then Rocket 88, nothing against it. It just it debuted at number 1, landed. So essentially everything just went linearly. And then Rocket 88 went to number 3. I really like it. This is something that I would play. I just, again, maybe it just did like, just kind of a fun party song.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of why it's the lowest for me. Is like, I think I think New York was the most balanced, and then True Grit was just the more artistically challenging, and then I think Rocket 88 was just fun for me. So that's where they ended up. I don't know if you're surprised by that ranking, or if you would be surprised as to where it started and then ended up.
A little, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah.
So since this is the only album they put out, I'm not going to pull from this well anymore. So you go
I'm going to I really like it.
Yeah.
I know they landed in a little bit of hot water with the album cover because it's parodying a like a Nazi recruiting poster, which is, you know, obviously something that's going to land you in hot water.
Right.
But again, I think a majority of the band members were Jewish. And this is, I think, evident of what punk does, is that it exposes things by being offensive. That's what the Meatmen were doing with True Grit. Like, let's expose a lot of these over-the-top stereotypes while also including things that are true about this culture. And I think that's important when, like, you know, if you want to draw parallels from like Nazi Germany to things that happen in your own society, I think to be offensive is important, you know, and it's not necessarily that we're anything close to approximating what Hitler did, but, you know, it's a fine line because I think like one of the things on the internet now is any argument that continues on long enough is somebody's going to call somebody Hitler. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's hard but again, I think it's important to, I don't know, like, it's important to make 9/11 jokes. It's important to make fun of tragedy. It's how we move on as a culture and as a society. It's important to be offensive because when you push that line, we all become stronger. You know, and it's important to, I don't know, but then again, now I'm starting to kind of contradict myself because, well, it was like, so I think of,
that's punk rock.
I think of people like, you know, Lemmy and Marilyn Manson, who both have like a little bit of a flirtatious relationship with, you know, Nazi iconography. Right. It's tricky. It's, you know, like Lemmy, I remember I watched the Lemmy doc and he wore a Nazi, I think an SS uniform, if I'm not mistaken, and rode around in a Tiger or a Panzer tank that this guy just had on his ranch or whatever. And it's like, part of me is like, that's kind of cool for the history. Like, Lemmy's somebody that was obviously very engaged in the history of that war, being from Britain, one of the countries most affected by that war. And in terms of the populace, and obviously France, Germany, Poland as well. Not to take anything away from anybody's experience, especially not taking away from Jewish people's experience from that war. That's why it gets tricky, because it's like you are wearing an SS uniform, riding around in a Panzer tank. It's weird. It's it's not an easy package to. I don't know where I stand on it.
And it's hard to defend yourself when you're in the costume, and I'm not knocking Lemmy or anything, but you know,
it's hard to wear that costume and be like, I have nothing in common with those people, because it's like you're wearing the t-shirt, bro. Fuck, dude. I like that we're having this conversation though. I think it's an important one to have, and I think in terms, I hope nobody's angry at me on this or my cautious ambivalence. It's just like, I don't know what to think, because I don't want to make rash decisions. I think when you make rash decisions, when you make hard and fast calls, you run into a lot of problems. And I don't know.
It can get sticky real
quick.
We're
gonna rabbit hole on this if we're not careful. I do, apologize for being long in the tooth about it, but I think it's important to think about these things, because especially in a clear-cut case like this, where they're using Nazi propaganda, but 3 out of the 4 dudes in the band are Jewish. Right. It's like, so what do you say to the Jewish comedian making Holocaust jokes?
Exactly. I mean,
if anybody has a right,
then they do.
If their family, are you familiar with Ari Shaffir?
The name is familiar.
He's pretty well known comic. He I don't think his album's going to be coming out anytime soon. He's shooting a special, or he was right now, called Jew, and he pokes a lot of fun at that culture. And I might be mistaken, but I think it's his father was in the Holocaust, like has the tattoo and everything.
wow.
So if he's making Holocaust jokes, like, you know, what do you say? And like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting, it's an interesting topic of discussion that we'll put to bed for now.
Yeah.
I'm still, I don't know. That's the best. That'll be my shirt, as a lemon. And, I don't know.
I don't know. So recommend.
Absolutely.
Back to our song.
This is a fun fucking song. I really like it. I think it's really well produced. I think it's really well thought out. I love the choruses. They're just, it's a fun way to wrap up what life in New York City is like, I feel like, and why I would never want to live there.
Yeah. I mean, it literally put me in a dirty apartment in my mind listening to this song.
Yeah.
You know, ordering Chinese food and pizza. So, all right. So, since we're done with these, before we move on to...
What's the theme?
The theme. Here it is. All three songs stole their title from much more famous pieces of art from the 50s and the 60s. Rocket 88 has actually been called the first rock and roll song, and it was recorded by Ike Turner, I believe, in 1951. It's not a cover. They just... Warrior Soul stole the title. A Rocket 88 is a term for an Oldsmobile 88.
Okay,
and it was a kind of a fast, cruising car for, the late or the early 50s, excuse me.
Okay.
So Ike Turner wrote a song about his riding around his Rocket 88.
Huh.
So Warrior Soul took the title, and that's why in the song he said, "I'm a Rocket 88." He's comparing himself to that car from that song in 1951.
Okay.
New York, New York. Obviously, it was a song
Sinatra.
made famous by Frank Sinatra. True Grit was
Glenn
the John
Campbell.
And the John Wayne movie from 1969. They took, all three of these songs titles are from something that was much, much more popular.
No, that's a good theme, because I missed it, and I should have caught it, because a lot of the songs you pitched, they're harder to find. Than, I type in Slide Away, and Miley Cyrus is the first thing that pops up. But True Grit, it was Glenn Campbell. There's a couple of other I think there was an album called True Grit by a country artist, and so all of those songs came up first, and then Glenn Campbell, and then same thing with New York, New York. Obviously, I had to sift through a lot of Frank Sinatra and Frank Sinatra covers. So, that's something I missed and just didn't pick up on.
And it actually happened purely by accident. I put those three songs together,
and then
realized
there's
all
no
the
intention behind it.
It was completely accidental. So I was like, since I've got this,
this built up to the hype. Yeah. The hype.
So,
the hype is real.
So, but it was completely accidental.
That's awesome.
And then I was like, I'm just going to throw this bonus in there since I accidentally picked three songs that I love. They're named after much more famous things.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's crazy.
So that's your little theme. Yeah.
The level of serendipity in this podcast is amazing.
It is. So there you go. You didn't win the prize. No spanking. Sorry.
Next time.
All
right. So, last song.
Let's close this up.
Let's close it up. And this is the one that I really tried to get you on, in terms of like, if I told you who I was giving you beforehand. It clicked again.
It's going.
Okay. Is it just reminding you that it's still running? So.
I don't know. Maybe I think it's haunted.
Okay. That's all that ghost work you've been doing. So I think, so I wanted to if I pitched you Jonas Brothers, you would have been like, oh God. And then, but this is a song I thought, like, if it could, it could melt your heart of metal and get you learn to love again. That's why my challenge for you this week was to get Trish to dance with you to this song. How did it go? The fans want to know.
She absolutely loved this song.
Yeah. I thought so.
She did.
I thought she would.
This is, as far as I know, this is the first Jonas Brothers song I've listened to on purpose.
Okay.
I don't know if I've ever heard any of their other stuff. I don't know. I'm familiar with the Jonas Brothers. I liked it. It was actually a really fun, like, upbeat song. Trish loved it. This was her favorite. of the three. This was my favorite of the three.
Yay!
Yeah, no, it was a well crafted, upbeat song. It to me, like lyrically, and I like the lyrics. I mean, it wasn't Shakespeare, but they were fun lyrics, and I knew what they were trying to get across with the lyrics. To me, this song is basically if Watermelon Sugar is when you first start dating someone, that's the song you write.
Mm-hmm.
Sucker is the song that you write for your mate when you're years into your relationship and you still have those great, awesome feelings.
Yeah.
Like this would be something that I would like, you know, would be like, I'd say this is about me and Trish after all these years, you know,
stumbling out of bars, dancing on top of cars.
That's her. But yeah, you know, just what a great song about, you know, a lasting relationships.
Sure. Yeah.
And you know, they were fun lyrics and very heartfelt, and had a really good beat.
Yeah.
And it was very danceable, very just like, you know, keep your head moving and just like watching Trish kind of like.
I like the way they play around with a lot of the production elements, like introducing the guitars and like having like some like synthetic elements, and the way they move like the drums in and out, because like some of the beat is just driven by like sounds like a group clapping. Like it's just it's a really textured kind of song. It's really fun, like you said, and I think it plays on the positives of a longer relationship. You know, you're not as starry-eyed and looking forward to that watermelon sugar as you once were, but you're still having fun and you can still have good nights, and this person can still convince you to make bad decisions on their behalf,
because you're a sucker for her.
Yeah.
And I did some research on it, and this apparently was kind of like a comeback record for them.
I think a lot of that had to do with the contract they signed with Disney, and however I mean, honestly, I think that's a hidden theme in the three that I suggested this week. Miley Cyrus, not Harry Styles wasn't involved with Disney, I don't think, but Miley Cyrus, Jonas Brothers, Harry Styles in terms of like One Direction, and the like these people all at some point had like contract disputes and issues and things like that. And like, I mean, one of the more recent ones suffering from that is like Taylor Swift. Like I think she just got the ability to perform her like original catalog of songs again.
Oh wow.
Because that's what happens a lot of times when you sign with a record label, is like you don't own your masters. They do, and you don't, sometimes you don't even have performing rights. Wow. If you leave that label, so, weird things like that. And like sometimes there's time distinctions. So I think a big part of the reason why the Jonas Brothers haven't been making music, or at least releasing music for a long time, is because I think they were held to a specific contract with Disney, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And I could be wrong. That's going to be on the back of my shirt. I could be wrong.
You can have a lot of shirts.
I'm going to have a lot of shirts.
But to me, it sounded like a boy band grown up.
Yeah.
And that sounds like, you know, we're a little older now. I think all three of them are married now. Yep. And, you know, it's like this is, you know.
Or at least divorced.
Yeah. This is when a boy band grows up, and this is,
you
know, we're making kind of like grown up love songs.
I think it's cool because it shows that, you know, I think there's a lot of obvious criticism people could lift against boy bands, like, oh, it's more about your looks and less about your talent. There's a team around you building this thing. You're less of a band and more of a brand.
Yeah.
So I could see these easy criticisms being lifted, but I think if anything, this shows like these dudes are just talented, and you know, whether they could, you know, shred a guitar like the guys in the bands that you put in this week, maybe not, but can they make a good song? Yeah. And is there still a team around them of people doing it? Yeah, but I mean, there's a reason why this song, you know, is as popular as it is because it sounds good and people like it.
Yeah, it's easy to listen to, and any band, I don't care who they are, if they last long enough, they become a brand.
Yeah,
I don't care how punk or how metal you are.
Yeah,
if you've got longevity, you become a brand.
Yeah,
even, you know,
if Target started selling Black Flag T-shirts, that's all you would see on these like, you know, younger wannabe skater kind of kids. Like, I mean, you've already seen it with the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, and like, you know, like T-shirts of these bands that you knew if you went up to that kid and you're like, hey, name one song, they'd be like, Black dog.
But I mean, and like Black Flag is already becoming a brand because
Yeah.
But it's my thing is once your shirt is in Hot Topic,
Yeah.
you're a brand. And I know the bands can't help it. And in defense, some kids, that's the only place they can get their shirts.
Yeah, yeah. And that is kind of like the did I tell you the Guitar Hero argument? The Guitar Hero argument that I learned from my drumming teacher. I don't know if I said it last episode.
Yes, but you can tell it again because it's
okay. Just to recap. Mm-hmm. So basically, I was I was taking drum lessons, and I was complaining that I was taking music very seriously. I was trying to learn guitar. I was playing piano. I was trying to learn drums. And a lot of my friends, they were just wrapped up in this Guitar Hero world. This is where it really started to kind of be popularized. And I was just complaining about it and saying, and like, because I had a deep commitment to this thing, actually trying to make music, and these people had no interest in it, but they had all the interest in the world for this little plastic guitar thing. And my drum teacher put it in a way that really kind of put it in perspective for me, where he said, if nothing else, it's getting a generation of kids who would not be exposed to this music, exposed to really cool music.
Yeah.
And that's changed my opinion on a lot of this kind of stuff. It definitely helped influence no, that kid would never have an opportunity to buy the Led Zeppelin 1977 American Tour t-shirt, but it's a really cool t-shirt design, and just because it's fresh and new and clean, like maybe that kid really does enjoy that band, and maybe it brings him a lot of joy for the next couple of years. It doesn't have to be like tribal. It doesn't have to be like, and it's funny, we talked about the way we met. It doesn't have to be like name 3 songs by that band kind of thing. And I was thinking, so now that we've kind of put this, well, hold on, would you recommend this song?
Yeah. Highly recommend it.
Yeah. Really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it. Trish enjoyed it.
Listen to it again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Dance to it again.
Now that Trish likes it, I'm going to have to listen to it again.
Well, so I was going to say, as we've put the music to bed for this, we could either cap off this episode with how we met, or we could start next episode with how we met, and I'll wear my Slayer t-shirt.
Let's do that.
Let's do that?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So next week, you get the when Brennan met Sally. I mean me.
When Harry met Harry.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, what I will do is for the YouTube version of that podcast, I'm going to find that picture that we took of me, you, and Trish the night we met. At the wormhole, and I'll put that in there.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So which been about 3 years now. So
it's been 3 years. Yeah. Holy shit. God damn.
But yeah. We'll that'll be next week instead of starting off on the negative. Next week that'll be our opening.
I like it. Yeah, yeah. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. Real quick, so just a way to kind of close this episode off. Mm-hmm. I was talking about my aunt from Thailand. Mm-hmm. My uncle was a writer. He wrote a couple of books, and one of them was about my aunt's experience growing up in Thailand, and it involves ghost. It's called the Ghost Walk or the Ghost Way.
Really?
I bet you I can find a copy of it if you're interested. It's short. It's not a long book.
Very, very interesting.
But it chronicles. It's mainly focused on her parents. She's a child at the time, but I read it and it creeped me out. Like, it's very compelling stuff. And as a ghost enthusiast,
yes,
I thought it's something that you might be interested in, and I should really go back and read it. It really is, in terms of like, my aunt's so sweet, and when you meet her, there's nothing inauthentic about her. She is just 100% the sweetest, most caring person you could ever meet. And the way that she recalls this time, it's one of those things like your saddlebag exploding.
Yeah,
it's hard to like when you believe somebody like that, when they have such an authenticity about them, it's really hard to bring your skepticism in. You know what I mean? So it's a really interesting thing, and so I'll definitely see if y'all can meet at some point. And she's a phenomenal cook.
Oh,
Get some,
well, even better.
yeah. So we'll figure out something like that, and then maybe she could, like, you could read the book and like talk to her about it. And I don't know how deep she likes to go into it. And she was young at the time, but
cool.
Thought that might be right up your alley.
I like that a lot.
A little bit more substance than the fake ghost tours you see around town.
Exactly.
Everything's haunted. That tree's haunted. That stick's haunted.
Yeah.
I just saw that there's a house on, I think it's Calhoun Square, and it was supposedly, when I took a ghost tour, it was supposedly the most haunted house in America, and people were waking up with cuts and that kind of thing, and they've completely remodeled the home, and I think somebody lives in it now, so it looks completely different. So it's like, because it was semi-abandoned, or it was definitely unoccupied when I took the tour. And now, if you took the tour and somebody's like, "This is the most haunted house in America," it'd be like, "Okay, yeah,
yeah." I doubt that.
They have a veranda. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not haunted, but not the most haunted house in America.
Right. Yeah.
I think we've got plenty more. Not even in this state.
Yeah,
that are more haunted. Sure. Yeah. So, but yeah, cool. So, how are we going to wrap this up?
However you want. Let's sing "Sucker" together, karaoke style.
Maybe
music.
Next week. Yeah, but yeah, what a great selection on both sides. I think
I was really blown away by both. Like, I think this isn't going to be every week where we just have like class music on both sides, obviously.
No, it's not.
But this was a week I got real excited about. I listened to all the songs so many times, especially New York, New York. And one of my favorite things to do is build that playlist, and it's cool watching it grow. It's like a plant. It's because it started with just 6 songs. Now it's at 12, and
then next week it'll be 18.
Yeah,
because I'm building the same one on Apple Music, and as soon as I figure out how to share it, we'll add that to the mix too. But I keep it for my reference point, like the same way you do it. But
that's the easiest way for me. Yeah. I'm kind of thinking, because we're thinking ahead. That playlist is obvious. So we release episodes, and then we continue to record, and we'll always be about a week behind, just because of how we need time to listen to the music, and then record and then release. So we'll always be about a week behind. And if we ever stack, maybe 2 weeks behind. But when we are ahead, I'll need to make the playlist. I'll be putting songs on the playlist, so I don't want people to have access to the songs early.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I think there should be a way to do that. Yeah. I'll think about, maybe I'll just do a temporary playlist that nobody can see.
Yeah.
And then move the songs over after the episode's released.
Yeah.
We'll do something like that.
Kind of release them all at the same time, like at the same day, like
so that the podcast drops and then the songs drop, and then
Yeah. Sounds good.
But we also talked about on the Instagram, like throwing up album covers for the deep cuts. Like, can you figure out the deep cut off of this?
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's going to be really fun.
I think so too.
And then plenty of cat content.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, we got a lot of ideas in the works. We're still kind of forming them out. If you're listening to this, this is a couple weeks prior to when you're hearing it, but we're working on stuff, and we're trying to get it situated, and hopefully by the time you're listening to this, everything's happening, and we're multimillionaires and driving big old Valhalla Viking trucks, and who knows what else.
I mean, why not? Yeah. You'll see how well we're doing as the way we look progressively over the week on the YouTube channel. If I come in here with like, in a throne of gold.
We're going to, I hope like at some point it's like just Nike gear, but it's still like, it's like a Misfits tee, but with the Nike switch, stuff like that. Just like, what do you mean sell out? Like,
and then you'll see more items on the table that are like, for different companies. Like, instead of having, a koozie with a friend's thing, it'll say like Coca-Cola or something like that. Or,
Cherry Sprite.
Yeah.
That's Cherry Sprite tastes an awful lot like Guinness.
Brought to you by Guinness.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
By the way, Guinness, I love your product.
All right, man. I can't think of a better way to wrap up. So.
That's it. All right.
Love you, buddy.
That's it.